So I'd like to welcome Anna Truffet from Google. She will be talking about the exciting topic of technical documentation.
You could have put enthusiasm into that.
I could try.
It could be less sarcastic. Just saying.
But, yeah, it's okay. Documentation. No one loves documentation until you have to maintain something, and then you love other people's documentation. You just don't like producing it. Documentation is important. This course is about designing large, complex systems, which means you need to describe it well enough for people to maintain it. And Google has a little bit of experience dealing with large, complex systems. So Anna has more than a little bit of experience of dealing with ugly bits of code and trying to know what they do, and has strong opinions about what is good documentation, which would be useful because I agree with a lot of those opinions, and we're going to be marking your reports for your capstone project, so it'd be useful to apply these approaches. So I'll hand over to Anna. Thank you.
Hello. Is this on? Can you hear me? Okay. Hello, my name's Anna. I'm, as Richard said, a software engineer at Google, which is very exciting. I'll be talking to you all about technical documentation, but also a bit about effective communication and writing well, because that's a really key step. Before I get into it, though, I'm just going to say hello. I'm Anna. I actually went to UQ. Very exciting, 2016, a Bachelor of Science majoring in Computer Science, and then a Bachelor of Commerce majoring in Accounting. I tutored a few courses in UQ, 1001, 2002, 2010, 2310, and Comp 3506. I also did a few internships, very fun. And then I graduated, yay, and now I'm at Google. I work in identity verification. Basically, for example, the Play Store, right? We sell a bunch of apps on the Google Play Store. Or YouTube. We have a lot of content creators on YouTube. They have to get their money dispersed to them from the AdSense on their videos. Maybe they made a lot of sales on the App Store. We have to send them millions of dollars, right? Because they've just made a lot of money. But do I just go, yo, random on the internet, here's $1 million, have fun? We actually have to start verifying their identity when it comes to such large scales of money, because you want to make sure there isn't fraud, there isn't identity theft, there's no abuse on our platform. So we want to make sure that we keep our users safe from these kinds of money laundering. So that's what I do. It's very fun. It's a growing area. Anyways, so today's agenda. So today we're going to break it into 2 sections. So the first section is going to be looking at technical documentation and specifically looking at the engineering design doc. And then we're going to then split it off to a second section about just how to write well. Because in uni, we focus a lot about writing code and making our code readable and maintainable and understandable. But the minute you hit industry, yes, that's important. But you're now working with hundreds of other people. You need to make sure other people also understand what you're doing, where you're wanting to go, what you want to do with your code. All right, you need to persuade them and whatnot. Okay, so technical documentation. So there's several kinds of documentation. You've experienced quite a lot of them already. I'm going to split them up into 2 categories, and this is an arbitrary split I've made up. So the first section is instructional, authoritative, backwards looking. Can you think of any examples that you may have seen already in this course or in your degree or just in life in general that may be instructional, authoritative, and backwards looking? There's 5 of you, so we'll get on a first name basis. Get keen. Yeah? You looked at me, so. Can you?
These independent art students.
Have you read anything that helped inform you about a system? Helped inform you about code, even?
So, yeah, I think from a developer's perspective, I want to know, like, if I use some API or I use some system, right? I want to know how to use them.
Yeah.
Secure correctly.
100%.
Yes, from the perspective of analysts, I want to know some internals. For example, for open source project, Google like Android, if I want to do some research there, I want to know internals about the system. There's a lot of scenarios that in the documentation.
Right? 100%. So for those online, hello, and audience, so you want to learn how to use some API. So you want to use an API from Google. You want to know exactly how to use that API, right? You're entering into a new system. You want to know how is that system designed, right? So architectural records design. Have we done this in this course yet? Yes? I think so, maybe? Architectural decision records? Yeah. Wikis? We have to, wikis? 100%. README files, like even in the code, you have little README files, like this is the code directory. Coding labs, if you want to start an API, there might be a tutorial how to do it. They're informative, they're instruction, right? This is what's happened, these are the facts, this is our system. Here's the facts, backward looking, instructional, authoritative. There's another category though, decision-making, discussion-based, forward-looking, right? So for example, product requirements documents. I have a new product, we need some features. We need to discuss what features we need, right? Or we're going to have to probably scope out these documents. I think this feature is going to take me about 2 weeks. Do you think this feature is going to take me about 2 weeks? Here are the problems I'm going to see, I think is going to happen. You know what I mean? Forward-looking. And then one we're going to look at is the engineering design doc. It's very discussion-based, very collaborative. There's room for changing and discussion. And hey, yeah. Anyways, so what is the engineering design doc? I'm going to give you a disclaimer. Everywhere has a different definition of design docs. So even within Google, Google Maps, Google Photos, Identity, all have slightly variations. They have different variants in the teams. I even changed my slight definition, but this is the broad umbrella of a design doc. So a document written by engineers, designing and discussing with many, and upcoming features, design, and implications. So let's break that down. So a document, it's going to be like a physical document written by engineers. So it's going to be like quite technical, right? You're going to get into the nitty-gritty. And you're discussing with many. So you're going to be discussing ideas, discussing the implementation, and like the design of your features. With many, right? With many other engineers. So I might write a design doc with maybe one other collaborator, maybe another set two if it's big. But I'm going to be sharing this around with my team. I'm going to be sharing it with other engineers. I'm going to be sharing it to product managers, key stakeholders. So we're going to be discussing. It's going to be a collaborative effort about features, designs, and implications. Right? You're not going to be like, oh, on line 50 of the main file, we're going to be adding an if statement. Not necessarily like the specific, this is where I'm going to put a semicolon, but the general designs and what are the implications? Is it going to be scalable for the future? Have we made any assumptions? And then keyword, upcoming. It's a future. Despite many writing them after the fact, it's in theory for an upcoming. So an example. Here is a real example of a document highlighting. So I reckon identity verification tool, and I wrote this little document in 2023. So I've just like anonymized it a little, so you don't have, but yeah. Basically, if we have a look at a design document, for context, we have this tool, and we have a lot of cards and information about like each card, and each card has a document associated to it. So this card has this document to it. Originally, we had 2 documents and 2 cards, so it was actually very easy to see. We then scaled it up to 10. So it actually became quite hard for users to identify which document for which card. It took a while. So as a result, we had to implement a new feature, document highlighting. So let's break it down. So let's look at the table contents. This is a general structure. It's not always going to be the exact same, but it's a general rough idea. So you have a key objective. Why are you building this feature? Not long, right? Like, why are we invested in this? Why are you reading a 10-page document, right? Background, optional. I really know what I'm talking about because I spent a week thinking about it. But yo, random Bray, yo, random Richard, can you read my doc? They haven't spent a week reading and investigating. So a little background. You don't have to read it, but to be able to understand the rest of key concepts. High-level requirements. What are the key acceptance criteria? What are the things we need to do? And then detailed design. Here are the big questions I have questions about, right? These might be controversial, or there might be several implementation options, and I'm not sure exactly which one. So yeah, here we said objective. I just need to, I even had a little demo video of like, this is what we're thinking. Here are the product requirements. I didn't write them, someone gave them to me, and this is what we're trying to do. Here is why we need, just a quick objective. This is why you should read my document. Background. Right? These are the important key concepts to be able to understand. You don't have to read it. Prior art, what other people have talked about. High-level requirements. It's literally just this. It's very short. Basically, when it's rolled out to everywhere, when an agent clicks on a card, document viewer, a document comes up. It's pretty chill. Oh man. So usually you don't put timelines or scopes or whatnot, but everyone kept asking me, hey Anna, while you're here, can you just do this quick thing? And I was like, no, I have shit to do. I'm not going to do that. It's going to take ages. So I put a little timeline in there to be like, I am not doing your stuff. So that's not normally there, but sometimes a little political. Anyways, detailed design. So we had two areas I wasn't 100% sure about, how the communication should happen between the cards and the document. And I was like, I'm thinking we may have this is the approach that I really want to do, right? There's some more information. It's the general overview. I'm not saying this is the exact line I'm going to change, but like this is, we're going to be sending information through some components. Here is what's going to happen. Here's the method I'm going to modify roughly about what I'm going to do. There's going to be a callback somewhere. And then here's the alternatives I've thought of. There may be other ways to do it, but I don't think this is the best way because it might decrease readability, reduce maintainability. Maybe there's a lot of areas that you still have to changing, right? Yeah. Oh, and then this was the second decision I wasn't really sure about, right? So in the second area, here is what I'm considering doing. These are the changes I'm considering making. Here are the things I've considered. Maybe people will come into the comments. I'll scroll down. People in the comments be like, what can you, I then send it out. People give me comments and be like, what do you mean by this? And then I'm like, yes, that's a great question. And I clarify. Or maybe they're like, have you considered this? What about this thing? And I'm like, oh, that's a great point. Let me address it. Let me add to it. Let me discuss about it. Do we have questions about the design doc? No? Cool. It's pretty chill, right? It's pretty structured. It's just like, yo, I have thoughts. Does anyone else have thoughts about my thoughts? So, task overflow example. Do you have a prac about task overflow in the past few weeks? Have you gone to pracs? Question mark. We have smiles that suggest we have not gone to pracs. So well, one of the pracs, you had task overflow. So it was basically like a notes app. You would just create a note and you would save it, and then you like have a little note, give Bray a graph. Join Richard Thomas's fan club, which I think was a Slack. And then you would give it a title, description, and you would just like add stuff to it. Well, now we have to make changes to this. So given a GitHub repo link, we are to get all the to-do comments from the code and then create a task. Yeah? Any questions about this? Pretty chill? But maybe there's several ways to implement it. You're not 100% sure which one. Maybe there's several unknowns. Maybe your team is dispersed across the world, right? Europe's not in a great time zone. Maybe we need some better discussion. Maybe you're new to the code base and you need some help and opinions and direction. So, let's work on this. So I've given us a little, let me zoom in. Given us a little start, task creation from GitHub repo. We've got draft, the authors, key contributors, and the date. From what you've seen so far, what should we put on this design doc? We've got an hour, so it could be a silence. An hour of silence if we don't say. You've made eye contact. Yeah? So scan through the code base and scan for a keyword. Yeah? Like say a grep or something. Yeah. Yeah. And scan the keyword and then you extract a task for it. Yeah, that works. Sounds good. Any other suggestions? Do I send Richard this document just as is? Yeah? Background? Yeah. You're 100% right? I love the solution, great solution. But if I pulled a random off the street and was like, yo, what do you think about this? They would be like, great, but why are we doing it? So let's maybe put a background. What are some key things that we need to think about? Oh gosh, I can't type. We also probably want to, why are we doing this, right? Objective, maybe a why. Yeah, it's very flexible. What would you categorize this to be it with your solution? Hello. With this, it's a great solution. Do we have anything else that we want to put in this doc? We've got one solution. Great. But is it very discussion-y? Maybe is there a second solution involved? Right? I don't know. Maybe there is an API by GitHub. I don't know. Maybe there's an external library, right? So we've got two solutions. Any other headings that we saw previously in our doc? I'm going to open the other doc. Any other headings? Just have to read the words. Oh, is that hand? Yeah, we probably need the requirements, right? Oh gosh, you gotta. Probably need the requirements. I'll give you a freebie. We need probably proposed design, right? Yeah, break it down. So yeah, it's pretty chill. You just fill in the blanks. I'll put you all out of your misery and we'll keep going. So let's break it down. What is an engineering design doc? So it explains how a proposed solution solves most of the problems. Maybe you understand how to solve 90% of it, but you have questions about the 10%. You don't have to detail your entire life story on how you got here. Just the things that the most key aspects you want to discuss. It communicates decisions. We're going to think about this, and this is why we're going to do it. This is why we're not going to do it. Maybe there's some assumptions. Maybe it reduces readability. Generates discussion and feedback from others. So you send it around, people comment, people discuss, you have a great time. And gives sufficient detail that others without context can understand and provide feedback, so your background. But also, a knowledgeable engineer can build it without making major design decisions. So most of the big questions should be answered. Pretty chill. What is an engineering design doc? It's not a persuasive essay. It's not an implementation plan. It's not a list of features. We have a list of features already. That's your product's requirement document. Your product manager, someone who's in charge of gathering features, has given that to you, and now you're just implementing them. It's not an implementation plan. You're not going to be like, on day 3, we're going to do this. On day 5, we're going to do this. You may say this is going to take maybe 2 weeks, but you're not giving me like a minute-by-minute breakdown. Before we go to the audience, do we have any questions? Oh, great.
So, Anna, is the design doc the first place where a feature is outlined? Or is there some process before the feature is scoped
Yeah.
and then design doc is after?
That's a very good question. For those who couldn't hear, and online people, which I know you're listening to at double speed at Swapback, the question was, is the design doc the first document that you will ever do? Unlikely, because if I go back to my example, often you'll have a product requirements document, or maybe you'll have a scoping document or a plan in place, like a broader implementation plan, right? So I actually didn't come up, we got some UXer in there who came up with a bunch of proposed improvements. And then they came with like proposed UX plans. And so we had UX, we had product, we talked to our users, we scoped, we understood the problem. We knew we had to do this. That was not a question. We knew we had to do something about our UX. We knew we had to do something about document highlighting. But how was I going to implement the feature we all agreed upon? That answers your question? Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. So audience. So who's reading your design doc? Name is there. So what's your name in the back row? Yeah, what's your name? Huh? Rayo? Who's reading your design doc? You've written a design doc, who's reading it? Yeah, the reviewer who wants to use your feature, right? Or the reviewer who wants to get affected by your code, 100%. I love that. Yeah? Pardon? Who want to do what on the feature? Yeah, who need to maybe implement the feature. Yeah, I'm writing the design because I have a really good understanding of the system, but I'm really busy. Maybe I don't have time to implement it. Maybe there's 3 people who need to implement it. Oh, sorry. It's not actually break time. So maybe there's the person who writes the document may be different to the person who implements it. Get keen with your answers.
I see some reviews or other things. I have no idea.
No, that's cool. So reviewers?
Yes, just to do some code review or other things. They may need to raise some engineering, design or other things. Maybe not the team or other things.
Yeah.
From the one team or other things.
Oh, I like that. So maybe your future code reviewers, who you make the changes in your code, you need to send in a pull request. They may need to understand what the overall goal of these codes are. Yeah, 100%. I'll save you for the next questions. Yeah, so there are actually so many people, and you've got a lot of them, right? Your approvers, maybe your implementers, maybe your future team members as well who are reviewing your code, people who are affected by your change or who want to use your change. Also, you may get some rogue ones in there too. Security and privacy reviewers, product managers. So in my IDV tool one, document highlighting, I was like, I'm going to roll this out to everyone. Ooh, no, that's not the right one. Everyone is getting my features. And this was not happening before. I was like, everyone gets it, regardless whether you want it or not. So people were really worried because I was making such a big change that I could break things, right? So as a result, I had to there's a lot of emphasis on experiment guarding. Because I'm like, I'm going to break things. People keep asking me questions. How am I going to prevent myself from breaking the system and taking down prod for a day? So I just put a little section in there. So understanding who will read your document is pretty important. Because that will affect your audience, multiple audiences. Oh. So that will affect what you put in it, right? What questions do they want answered? So I'm going to step back. It's lunchtime. It's midday. I'm really hungry. But I'm actually not a very good cook. So I want to cook pasta, but I don't really know what to do. I'm going to need a lot of information, right? Oh, I have a clicker. I don't know why I've been running around. No, I don't. Okay, so if I want to cook pasta, I need really specific information. I've got pasta. I need salt. How much salt? 12 grams, right? I'm going to add 8 cups of water to a pot, place over high heat, and add salt. And I'm like, oh, good to know. I did not know I needed to salt my pasta water. Apparently, people get mad if you don't salt your pasta water. Then you bring it to a boil and then add the pasta. It's very instructional. There's you can't stuff it up. They give you a lot of detail. Would Gordon Ramsay like this recipe? Does Gordon Ramsay need this level of detail? No. I see a lot of shakes of the head, right? Gordon Ramsay would get bored after reading. He would probably be insulted that you told him to add salt to water. Apparently people do, right? So this is the same recipe, but it's a lot chiller. What's the time? Put a stick of butter and a handful of pine nuts in a skillet. Cook over medium heat until both are brown. Toss in cooked pasta, grate parmesan, black pepper. Right? He probably doesn't need to be told how to cook pasta. He's probably cooked pasta in his life before. Right? So this is what I mean when you say you understand who your audience is. What questions do they want from it? Why are they here reading your doc? Because realistically, I would be in bed eating a donut. But I'm here reading your doc. Why am I reading your doc? What answers do I want? So just making sure you know what they're looking for. Right? And all of these people, unfortunately, will probably have different questions or similar questions, and you've got to make sure you cover them all. Bonus documentation. So we talked a lot about, before I go on, do we have questions? I'm sorry if I made you hungry. It is midday. Good? Okay, bonus documentation. I'm just going to pause the recording here. Sorry, online. I'm going to pause it. I'll be back in a second. In person, please remind me to unpause the recording. Okay, so now it's online. You missed out on some really exciting, groundbreaking stuff there. Okay, we're going to shift now away from the design doc. So we kind of know what goes into a design doc. We kind of know what generally the structure is, why we want to do it, who's going to read it. But you got to make sure it's actually readable. You got to make sure people can understand what you're saying, right? So we're really going to be talking about how to write a good thing. So we're going to break that down with a few examples. But here you go. What does your reader need? We've kind of touched base on this. What's your audience? Why are they here? What questions do they have? What do you need to answer? Keep it concise. I could be in bed eating a donut, but I'm here reading your doc. Make sure each paragraph, each sentence, each point you're making adds value. The 58 words was a bit of a ridiculous joke. I had a chuckle to myself, but keep it concise and clean. Don't waffle. Outline and dot point first. Sometimes it's hard to you have a white page and you don't know how to fill it. It's a big jump from a blank page to a full document. So do exactly what we did earlier, right? Maybe you have an idea ahead, you want to scramble that down, good job. Maybe you oh shit, I need to tell my audience what the background is or what the requirements are. So just put the headings in and then start filling it out. It'll come just as you build on. And then improve readability. We spend so long talking about style guides for code, right? How many indentations? Does your curly brace go on a new line? Make sure your methods are small. We spend 4 years talking about code readability, but there's also such things as writing readability, where it actually, the initial form of readability. So we're going to do that now. I have an example. So I think this was 1 year in your notes. And then now I hope it's been updated. But in order to well understand the information at hand about load balancers, it is important to understand the components of a load balancer. There are effectively three components of a digital load balancer. The first component is a listener. It allows traffic to enter the load balancer, and each listener has a port, e.g. port 80, and a protocol, HTTP, associated with it. The second component are target groups, are groups of nodes which the load balancer can route to. Each target group has a protocol and the port associated with it, allowing us, the programmer, to switch ports on the way through the load balancer. This is useful if the targets are using a different port to the ports we want to expose. The third component is a load balancer. Routes the traffic to the target groups based on the rules that we set up. Good job us, we read stuff about the load balancer. But, yes or no, if you just crossed your eyes a little bit and skimmed over it, would you immediately be able to tell what this paragraph is saying? What information you should get out of this paragraph? No, right? You have to read through the whole thing and then sit there for a bit and be like, okay, what do they want me to know? I guess it's something about load balancers, and keep rereading, right? So let's break that, let's make this more readable. So that ideally, if just skimming by, you would have we can get the key things in, right? Think about the donut. You could be eating a donut. So, what's the first thing we could do? Yeah? 100%. We have a list of 3 things. Let's make them dot points. So what are the 3 things? There is the third component. There is the second component. And then there's the first component. Ooh. Right? So immediately, from looking at it structurally, you can see there's 3 things here. I like it. Anything else? Do you have any suggestions?
Change the first sentence.
Change the first sentence. I like it. How are you changing the first sentence?
I don't know, move load balances earlier.
Yeah? So the key word here is load balancers. So you want to make sure you're mentioning load balancers. So basically there's a lot, what I'm hearing you saying, there's a lot of information that may not necessarily be relevant, right? So to understand information at hand about load balancers, it is important to understand the components of load balancers. It's very repetitive, and we're really wanting these last 2 words at the front. A good way, if you notice you're getting really wordy, try and read the sentence without certain parts or phrases or words. So to see if we can get rid of it. So ignoring the first half, just cover it, it is important to understand components of the load balancer. That still makes sense, right? It still makes sense. We can just get rid of the first half. It's important to understand things, the components of the load balancer. Can I ask you all a quick question? I had $40,000 of HEX debt, right? You all have a large amount of HEX debt as well. It's clearly very important to go to uni and learn about load balancers, so much so you've got thousands of dollars of debt. Sorry to bring the tone down. I'm pretty sure we all agree upon it's important to understand load balancers, whether it be for your job or you want a 7 in the course. So I'm just going to remove it. It's assumed, right? It's assumed you think it's pretty important for one reason or another. And we can still read it. There are effectively 3 components of the digital load balancer. Does that still make sense? Yeah, and we now have brought load balancers closer. I like it. Do you reckon we can make this first sentence better? We've got 20 minutes on our lecture, so the answer's probably going to be yes. We've got to fill another 20 minutes. Anything to think of? Doesn't have to be.
Just list the 3 components in the first sentence.
Yeah. I like where you're going. So we've kind of got these 3 components hidden throughout our text. So you actually have to still search for what those 3 components are. So we could move them at the front, 100%. Or, hear me out, because we're using a computer, could we use formatting to help what the three components are. It's now immediately clear. We have three components, we have 3 dot points. And what are those 3 components? Those things we've bolded and underlined. These are the key words you need to know. Again, with your suggestion, bring the most key word to the front, right? Every sentence, every word, every paragraph needs to have a purpose and add value. So the listener. The second component are, you can just say target groups, right? That still makes sense. The third component. Also, now we've got 3 dot points. It's easier on your mental load to count, right? You don't need as signposting as much because the physical dot points will help. Cool. I'm going to say we can still make this better. The listener, which allows traffic to enter the load balancer, and each listener has a port and the protocol associated with it. That was one sentence. I really struggled to breathe there. Yes. You can move the, you're suggesting to move the examples? Yeah, you could remove the examples. I'm going to be honest with you. I personally would not have known a protocol without someone telling me no. So it's useful. If, say, the example was 5 sentences long, probably not needed. Considering it's only 2 words, probably fine. But I like where you're heading. I could not breathe through this entire sentence. I probably needed a full stop in there. Yeah? Each sentence should probably just do one key thing. The listener allows traffic to enter the load balancer. I've got my cheat sheet here. There you go. Each listener has a port and a protocol associated with it. Right? So each sentence, ands aren't bad. You can have ands, that's fine. But sometimes if your sentences start getting really long, and you're like, oh shit, I'm needing to breathe, but I haven't found a full stop yet, ands are usually a good way to indicate where you need another sentence. And last thing, there are effectively 3 components of a digital load balancer. Still really like your point. We can still do better with the load balancer going forward. This is where I bring in my little cat sat on the mat. So this is where active and passive voice comes into play. Passive voice is the object had something done to it. So the mat was sat on by the cat, right? So this inanimate object had something done to it by the subject of the sentence, right? The mat was sat on by the cat. It's not necessarily the most spoken colloquial English, right? It's much quicker to say the cat sat on the mat because the cat did something to the mat, which makes it active. The cat is actively doing something. Does this make sense? Yeah? So, coming here, there are effectively 3 components of a digital load balancer. What is the subject of this sentence? Digital load balancer. That is the cat in this situation. What is the mat? 3 components. If someone walked in here right now, they would be very confused. The key way you can usually tell something's very passive is this use of the word of. If you start seeing the word of, it suggests something was being done to the subject, right? And usually you can make it more active if you remove the word of. It's not always the case, but it's a very good indicator because it takes a while to identify, and that's one key way to find it. So the load balancer, the subject of the sentence, has 3 components. Same sentence, we've just changed the voice. It makes it much clearer. I've also removed some words here, I've realized. Digital, I'm assuming it's a digital load balancer. It's an IT course. Effectively 3 components. Is there 3.5 components? I don't know, is there 2.5? Is there 3.14? I'm just gonna get rid of it. Load balancer. Anyways, so we've done quite a bit of a change to this paragraph, but here, if we look here back to our example, is what we started with. It's very hard to see what you want your audience to read. I have to do a bit of searching. Here, how do we feel about this? Better, right? You immediately know that we're talking about load balancers. We know there's 3 parts, and I could even skip reading this by accident because I know there's 3 dot points. And then I even know what the key word is in each dot point. There's a listener, there's target groups, there's a load balancer. Oh, I don't really know what target groups are. I'm going to now read more information about target groups. So it's much easier, and you just can start skimming documents. It's much better. Okay, hopefully, if all the things you get from this lecture, go back and to your, did you have to write an assignment about architectural decision? What was it?
Well, they have to describe the architecture for their project, so their decision records are just one tiny part of it.
We'll go through, we'll have a look at what you've described, what you have to write to describe your architecture, what decisions you made, what you had to written, and then look, because now you would have had time between when you wrote it and now, immediately just look at a paragraph and be like, do I know exactly what I said in this paragraph? Why did I write it? What do I want the reader to know? Anyways, so there you go. Sorry, I spent a lot of time on that, but important. Practice it, it takes time, but you can do it. Everyone, as long as you practice, makes better. Okay, and then last, it's a tool of communication, but it's not the only tool. I spent a lot of time on it, but there's many ways. So this document, any document you write isn't just standalone. You just don't write it and then let it be and then throw it in the bin. There's usually a process to review documents or share documents. So you would often try and write the document with your friend, you and your friend would write it. You'll get things inputted to a product requirements doc. You'll start writing it. You get people close to you, right? Maybe you'll get an expert to give you advice. Maybe you'll get people who will directly use it or something. Once they've had a good look at it, gave feedback, you'll usually spread it to the wider team. My wider team in Sydney has 40 people, so you would usually share it. Not everyone may be invested in it, maybe not everyone reads it, but share it around, get more ideas, the better. If there's a lot of yelling in your doc comments, people are getting very mad about your document. Should you have an in-person talking session? Maybe there's some really poor assumption you've made, or you had a huge oversight. Maybe there's actually this huge unknown you never expected. Maybe you should have a whiteboarding session. There's other forms of communication that supplement your documentation. And then get approvals. Just be like, yo, sign off, please. Please approve it. That's more of a political thing. So people be like, why you do this? And I'm like, well, the smart person said I could. Anyways, done. Writing resources. Some writing resources if you want to learn more about how to write. I think you have the slides at some point, so you'll get the links for it. But there's a documentation chapter in software engineering at Google. Overview of technical writing. So technical writing is actually a profession you can do, writing for technical things. So that's a thing you can do. On Writing Well, it's just a book about nonfiction writing style and elements of style. Anyways, that's pretty much it. Do we have any questions? Yeah?
Not to go back to the load balancer.
Yeah.
Why is the third part of a load balancer a load balancer?
That would be a question for you. Okay, so the question was, talking back to the load balancers, why is the third part of the load balancer a load balancer? Does a tutor want to explain? Richard made a noise of ah.
Or you want to say
Loading is, oh, routing, sorry. Routing. There you go. They're done. Thank you.
So yes, there was lots that could be improved in that. But yeah, load balancer has 3 components. A listener, a target group, and a load balancer is recursive and not helpful, both from a understandability and a documentation perspective. But the idea that, what does a load balancer do? It balances load, okay, obviously that, but how does it balance load? it routes traffic. When it's routing traffic, it needs to know where to route it to, that's your target groups, and it needs to know where the information's coming from. If I'm routing traffic, I need to know who wants that traffic, so that's where your listeners come in. And so, yeah, we can fix this a whole lot, and target groups, 4 sentences there, that probably should be simplified. Oh yes, we have updated the notes.
Is when is the feature too big? Honestly, it's vibes based, which is the worst. It's a bunch of, basically it's a bunch of factors on when you start getting a feeling. You start getting a feeling or a vibe that it's getting too big. And over years of practice, you start to hone that ability of when the vibe is too big. But usually it starts getting too big when you need like several engineers on it. If you need like several engineers to complete this this design, maybe this design could be broken down into several smaller sections. Maybe it's touching several different systems all at once, right? And those systems could be, those changes could be parallelized, so they could be actually quite independent of each other. Maybe that's a sign that you've actually got several designs in here that could be broken down into better subject matters or better targeted areas. Another reason maybe getting too big is if the actual implementation is now spanning, instead of weeks, quarters or months, like several months long. Maybe there could be, that's more of a timeline problem. If you have a project that's 12 months long and something goes wrong, it can actually expand much longer to like say double it, 2 years. And that from like a timeline resourcing allocation problem can be quite bad. So you do want slightly smaller designs, break it down into milestones to try and like deliver as much impact as you want as possible. I don't know, that's not necessarily a documentation question, but like that's a, like for example in this one, I keep going back to this example, but when I had that timeline section, it was starting to get too long. Like to be honest, this was getting way too long at some point. People kept asking for more and more features, and I was like, I love this, but we're losing sight of the initial goal. I'm gonna push this out to other areas. Like this realistically can be done at a different time by a different person. It's not required for the main project. So yeah, does that help? Do you wanna add anything? Please add, because that was a very wishy-washy answer.
It's a wishy-washy answer, yes. But there is no nice magic metric. The closest metric is time. Well, when I look at it from the perspective of I'm the consultant coming in talking about development processes for an organization, I'm looking at you want to commit 3 to 6 people for 3 months. If you're committing 20 people for 12 months, you have a problem in your whole process. And it actually goes back to the joke of if you ask a developer for an estimate, take the estimate, double it, and increase the order of magnitude. So if they said a year, oh, that's 2 decades.
Legit though, yeah.
But it's close, it's got a kernel of truth to it. And so when I say, oh, that'll be 3 months, that can actually blow out to well over a year. If I say that's 3 weeks, that can easily blow out to a quarter. So if I'm looking at things where I've got lots of people working for long periods of time on a project, then I've got no control over what's going on. So I don't know what's going to happen. I have too many risks, and my documentation can never be clear enough to manage something of that size. So it's my metric for is it too big comes down to what's the ballpark time frame.
Yeah. This is why Richard's a lecturer and not me.
Opinions you have about this AI documentation?
So the question was, what are your opinions on like the use of AI in documentation, both the producing and the consuming side of documentation. Sorry. There you go. This is not me as a Googler. This is me as a human. This is not Google's opinion. I'm not representing them in any way. That's my disclaimer. I would say AI is a tool, right? So like in general, AI is like a tool to be used and to help. Whether that gets used in reality, I don't know, a bit grim, but it's mainly a tool to get used. So it can't do everything. So there's still gonna be parts where you have to like help read and write documentation, but it can like, for example, with like the Industrial Revolution, right? People were mad. The weavers were mad because they were like, but I wanted to weave my clothes, but it took me 24 months to make a single sweater. And you're like, maybe use machines. Similar with AI, right? Like it's a tool to help, to maybe speed up processes. But there's a lot of issues with AI as well. We're still not there yet. It can hallucinate a lot of things. So we're like, I've tried to use AI in certain aspects, but it does hallucinate a lot of things. So you need to make sure what gets written is actually accurate. And also the process of writing documentation and that process of discussion that comes from writing and reading and talking about it and designing the features is actually more valuable than the actual writing itself. Like the end document, it's more valuable to like write it, discuss it, think about it. As you're thinking about it and writing it and designing it, you actually come up with, oh, what about this edge case? Oh, what about this area I haven't thought about? Oh, what about this use case? Can we make, and those kinds of things are extremely valuable that if you just told an AI to do it, you will miss and lose a lot of those opportunities for improvement. So yeah, like, as in, don't get me wrong, it's useful, it's great, but there's a lot of other things than just producing the end piece of paper. Does that help answer?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Anyways. Cool. Cool. Go team. Ooh.
Okay, thank you, Anna.